I'm Corbett Wall with USDA Livestock and Grain Market News, here with your weekly feeder and stocker cattle market summary for the week ending March the 9th, where this week feeder cattle sold weak to $4 lower. Your calves were $2 to $5 lower, with the full decline seen in the southeast, where the losses were dominant across all the southeastern states as the orders have really backed off coming in for those lightweight calves. Most of the pressure came from sharply lower futures markets there early in the week on Monday and Tuesday, which really kind of jolted things a little bit, and then that provoked an early fed cattle trade, which was mostly $3 lower at 127. Now on the other hand, we did have your old crop stockers, your long-time wean calves that are ready to turn out right now on grass, selling unevenly steady to as much as $5 higher. By far the best demand is for those types, especially weighing up into the 5s and into the 600-pound range, where those guys that want to turn those cattle out on grass can see that early come on them real quick, compensatory gain, whatever you want to call it, where they can turn those cattle out immediately without having to have a lot of expensive and extensive preconditioning. They can turn those cattle out relatively quick after running them through and processing them, giving them their shots and everything. Turn those cattle out. That first 50 pounds at least will be for nothing, as those cattle hit that green grass and have a thin enough flesh condition to really put on some weight and kind of recoup some of the expense that these cattle are costing, because the prices are just so high right now for those cattle. They've got to get some cheap gain out of them to try to cheapen them back up to where they can really afford to own them. But it's been such a mild winter. It's been the 4th mildest winter our nation has ever seen, and which is bringing a lot of these feeder cattle and some of those lighter feeders that would normally sell as stocker cattle coming in a much fleshier condition, which is not what these grass interests really want. They'd like to see those cattle coming through a hard winter in a thinner flesh condition and really hungry and ready to put on some quick pounds. But a lot of these cattle are a little bit too fleshy, and you're a little apprehensive to turn them out on grass, especially when they're costing these kind of prices right now, because these cattle coming in pretty fleshy, they're going to eat the grass, but they're not really going to put a whole lot of weight on immediately on that. It'll take a while to green them up to where they really start doing good on that grass. Not so if they were really thin coming in. But extremely windy across the country this week, sapping that moisture out of the ground, and really, we've seen some rains in the southern plains. And especially in East Texas, South Texas saw some good rains down there, and hopefully they will have some good green grass coming on this spring. But really in the hard red winter wheat region, where those cattle are having to come off of wheat this week, because most of your least wheat guys have to be off of it by March the 15th. Not going to have a whole lot of graze out wheat this year, because we're still so short of hay. They'd rather, cut some hay, some wheat hay off of those pastures there, or maybe even make a crop out of it if it's going to be good enough. But, it's still dry down in that area, and it's going to take a long time to recover from this drought. And in the short term, if they were going to leave cattle on that wheat, they was going to need another good rain before that. And these high winds are just sapping the moisture out of that wheat. And they're really starting to scare guys a little bit from down in that area, thinking, oh no, here we come back with another year like we had last year. But our high beef prices are starting to really hit home for the housewife, and we're starting to see some resistance to these high beef prices. Are backing off. Some of these grocery stores are starting to feature more pork and chicken because it's much cheaper, but we really haven't got into all out great grilling season yet, and that's when guys are going to go to your steaks and more so to your hamburgers for a quick fix there. But we'll have to see when we get later into the spring and the temperatures start warming up, and we want to have a whole lot more grilling right there. But we may be in a holding pattern right now for these yearling and calf prices right now. there's still probably some room for these grazing cattle, especially these bigger stockers that the guys are really want to come up, because there's a whole lot of guys that's going to have grass to turn out on and other things to, for forage to turn these cattle out. But those cattle going into the feedlot that depend on that fed cattle market and depend on the board so much, we're probably going to be in a holding pattern, hopefully a holding pattern, and not a whole lot more loss right in there, because we've got a lot of those weak cattle coming off right now. They're pretty juicy. They're going to not be quite as attractive. The feedlots want to get a hold of the numbers, but they're not going to push the market a whole lot, especially not right now, until we see if this fed cattle market can break through that $1.30, which got strong resistance at that $1.30 there last week when they had to give it. So we'll have to see where it comes from there, and we hope that the funds and the investors that have propped this board up so much don't start bailing out of it and rolling it down like they do so many times. But feeders were sure cheaper this week at Torrington, Wyoming. They had over 6,000 head of feeders. They were sure $4 to $8 lower and more than that in spots. But these replacement quality breeding heifers are still in high demand. They're going to be buying them for, quite a bit longer until we get these fancier cattle out of the way. But they're looking for cattle to breed. They sold out of the 6,000 cattle, or over 6,000 head at the feeder sale in Torrington. Nearly 750 of them sold for breeding heifers. These were top quality open heifers weighing from 600 to 750 pounds. And of those 750, they averaged 658 pounds at 162.33. Pretty nice price, nearly $10.70 a head for an open heifer. Regional weighted averages this week up in the north central states: 800 to 900 pound steer cost you $147.73 compared to $149.22 last week and $125.21 a year ago. Down to south central states, 700 to 800 pound steer cost you $156.23 compared to $156.77 last week and $129.23 a year ago. And down in the southeast, a 5-weight steer cost you $174.57 compared to $177.38 last week and $142.99. Coming from you this week here in Columbia, Missouri, where we're here for a meeting with all of our Missouri market reporters to make sure we're seeing cattle the right way. From the Regional Market News Office in St. Joe, Missouri, we'll talk to you next week.